We have a bunch, and I mean a bunch of trade rumors to discuss surrounding 3 players on the Heat roster. Those 3 being Andrew Wiggins, Kel'el Ware, Kel'el Ware, and DaVon Mitchell. I'm Nick Roloff. This is the Heat Report by Chat Sports. We're going to talk about Miami potentially trading away these 3 players before the February 5th trade deadline, but I want to reiterate what the current plan is for the Miami Heat, at least as of right now. Now, things may change as reports come in, but right now, Miami remains to be in wait-and-see mode on Giannis Antetokounmpo. Will he request a trade away from the Milwaukee Bucks prior to that deadline in 15 days? Will they ultimately wait to the offseason to address this? Will the Heat go after Ja? It sounds like they are in wait-and-see mode. But no matter what, I think the Heat should sell at the deadline, because if they want to acquire Giannis Antetokounmpo, they need more draft picks, specifically in the first round. And you have players that can get you there on the veteran market, whether it's Wiggins or Norman Powell. And let's get into Andrew Wiggins here, because Michael Scotto reported that Miami has gauged the trade market across the league on Andrew Wiggins, who's having a real good season for Miami, shooting 40% from 3, good on both ends, has a player option next year, last year of his current contract at $30 million. Now, Scotto mentioned Memphis here, but that was more in the vein of maybe if the Heat trade Wiggins for Ja Morant. That will not happen. If the Heat trade Andrew Wiggins, to me, it would in all likelihood be a trade where you are selling and getting a first-round draft pick and expiring salary in return. And if Miami were to do that, I do firmly believe that Andrew Wiggins is worth a first-round pick. Because, I've had my issues with Wiggins and his inconsistencies, his turnovers when trying to create offensively, but he is still a very valuable two-way wing that is very active on the glass, solid defensively, shooting really efficient from 3. And has had some big-time clutch moments for Miami, by the way. Saturday game winner against the Thunder, big three-pointer against the Knicks earlier in the season. Wiggins has been very good for the Heat. So you could get a first-round pick in return for Wiggins, no doubt about it. A lot of information on today's show on the Heat and maybe their trade deadline plans. Help us out. Share today's video. Inform all of the Heat fans possible as we have the latest surrounding this basketball team. If you tag me on Twitter and X, I'll give you a shout out and retweet you on social media. So go tag me at Nick_Roloff. You talk about potentially trading Andrew Wiggins. Where could he end up going? The Los Angeles Lakers are the easy, no-brain, let's throw him on the list. They've been the team the most interested in Wiggins, dating back to the NBA draft back in June. Remember, the Heat in LA, they discussed a potential trade around the draft. But there's also been some buzz out there over the last 3 months about Golden State, Milwaukee potentially being interested in Andrew Wiggins. It'd be fascinating to see the Warriors reacquire Jimmy Butler. I put the Cavs on there because if they look for an upgrade, I think a 3-and-D wing could be the place where they go, and maybe Andrew Wiggins would be a better fit than DeAndre Hunter. But if you do trade Andrew Wiggins, it feels as if Los Angeles makes the most sense, right? They have Austin Reeves. They have Luka Doncic. They have LeBron still playing at a relatively high level. The one thing that roster is missing is a 3-and-D wing to connect all of their pieces. Andrew Wiggins has been connected there a long time, and he makes a ton of sense. And a trade would be easily done, right? It'd be very easy to put one together because the Lakers have multiple expiring contracts. Hachimura making $18 million. Gabe Vincent, Maxi, Kleber, both making $11 million, all on one-year deals. They have a first-round pick they can trade. And if you do this trade that's right here, Miami would get 2 expiring contracts and Rui Hachimura and Maxi Kleber. That's $29 million expiring coming off the books this summer. You get a former first-rounder that I think Miami could get the most out of, former shooter, scorer out of Tennessee, Dalton Knecht, plus a first-round pick. The Lakers get Andrew Wiggins and guard depth defensively in Drew Smith. That is an ideal trade for Miami, as well as I think Los Angeles. That would make them better. But for the Heat, you do get those expiring contracts, and you get a first-round draft pick that you could add to your capital in a trade, not only for Giannis potentially before the deadline, because I don't think Milwaukee would want Andrew Wiggins if they're trading away Giannis, and it would allow you to maybe have more draft picks to trade this offseason. So to me, it makes a lot of sense for Miami to explore that if the Lakers were interested. But then there's the report about Kel'el Ware from Michael Scotto, who we labeled earlier on the show as a potential trade candidate. Is that true? I don't know. But Scotto says Ware has drawn interest from around the league in a potential trade. He's 21, averaging nearly a double-double, shooting 42% from three. Heck, 3 weeks ago, he was shooting 48% from three, which is top 5 in the NBA. It's a fascinating idea to trade Kel'el Ware. I have a lot of opinions on the matter, and there's been a lot of discussion about a potential Kel'el Ware trade. But before we get into that, I want to pull the ideas of the Heat fans. I want to know, do you guys think the Heat will trade someone before the deadline, whether it's acquiring a player or trading someone away? Will they make a deal? Y for yes or N for no? I want to start here with Kel'el Ware, though. Now, I don't expect, and if you're asking my personal opinion, I would not even think about trading Kel'el Ware for anyone but Giannis Antetokounmpo right now. And I want to preface that by saying right now, before the deadline on February 5th. Because Kel'el Ware still is 21 years old. And even though you have not seen him and Erik Spoelstra see eye to eye this year, which we'll get to here in a second, the talent is undeniable, and the ceiling, future of Kel'el Ware is undeniable. He is averaging a double-double, only playing 24 minutes a night. Who knows if he played 30 minutes a night, if he would be able to raw box score, put up 15 and 12 a night, maybe even more. He's been really efficient from the field offensively. Now, the concern with Kel'el Ware is his motor, his energy level, and his defense, which is why him and Erik Spoelstra have not seen eye to eye, and there has been a lot of disagreements between the two, which is why I think the offseason is a different story when it comes to Kel'el Ware, to where maybe Kel'el does get traded this offseason because the Heat just don't want to deal with it anymore. Or maybe they do trade Kel'el Ware for an upgrade at a different position, whether it's a Giannis, a Trey Murphy, something like that. But the possibility of a trade featuring Kel'el Ware, I think, has gone up dramatically since last week, whether it's the deadline or the offseason. Because Kel'el Ware didn't play a single minute last Thursday, January 15th, in the second half against the Boston Celtics. A lot of people, including myself, shredded Erik Spoelstra, saying, why did you do that? That makes no sense. You blew that lead. You didn't play Ware once in the second half. Well, Spo said after that game that I get it with young players, that you sometimes subconsciously play poorly, to say, hey, I'll play poorly until you give me the minutes I think I deserve. That's not how this works. It's an absolute wild thing to say. I defend Erik Spoelstra because he is a multi-time NBA Finals championship winning head coach. He's viewed as the best head coach in the NBA, even though I think Joe Mazzulla has likely passed him at this point. But to suggest a player might be playing poorly on purpose to try to send a message that he needs more minutes, I think is irresponsible in a miscalculation from head coach Erik Spoelstra. But it clearly gives us a little bit of a deep dive in inside information on how Spo feels about Kel'el Ware potentially, and Ware responded, which we'll get to here in a second. But the big game is upon us, almost 2 weeks away now, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than on Prize Picks, where it feels good to be right. Not only is the big game around the corner, but you also got basketball matchups every night. Close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. They have a lot of great features, one of them being early payouts. If your players get off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. All you got to do to get started, by the way, and get a lineup pick more or less than at least 2 player stat projections. We got 2 more games before the big game. That would be Patriots-Broncos in Seahawks-Rams. I'm going more on Drake May passing yards, 222.5. I'm going more on Matthew Stafford interceptions and less on Rashid Shaheed receiving yards. He's more of a gadget guy nowadays. I don't think he catches a lot of balls down there in Seattle. Join me. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's good to be right. One thing is clear to me when evaluating Erik Spoelstra, Kel'el Ware, and the Miami Heat. They do not get along. Erik Spoelstra has a lot of issues with Kel'el Ware. I think Kel'el Ware has a lot of issues and complaints about head coach Erik Spoelstra, and I think this is a ticking time bomb. I think Erik Spoelstra, I don't know how the front office feels. I don't know how Erik Spoelstra feels, but I believe that Spo might feel Kel'el Ware is Hassan Whiteside level of, hey, I'm really talented. I'm not going to put in the effort. I'm going to kind of just come in here every day, make my money, play basketball, and try to put up some numbers, but not actually care about winning and putting in the effort to do the other things. Is that true? I don't know. But that's what I believe Erik Spoelstra thinks. And I thought Kel'el Ware's response to Erik Spoelstra's comments was interesting. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. I think it's crazy, but I mean it's his comments. I've kind of learned to control what you can control. It is what it is. If I didn't play the second half, that was his decision. He felt he needed to make in order to produce. I guess like he said 8 weeks ago, I would say I had more minutes 8 weeks ago. I'm telling you, folks, these two borderline can't coexist right now. Erik Spoelstra is fed up with Kel'el Ware, and Kel'el Ware is fed up on Spo. Now, Spo had an opportunity to clarify his comments just a day or two later. He said that he did not articulate it in a great way, and that wasn't fair to Kel'el. I'm fully invested and invigorated by the opportunity to develop Kel'el Ware. And I tell you what, I don't think there's ever been a statement that Erik Spoelstra made that was more full of shit. Because I don't think he wants anything to do with Kel'el Ware. If it was up to him, he would not be on this team. And I think if it was up to him, he would not play Kel'el Ware. But the Heat don't have another big man that they can play. We saw his hesitation to play him last year as a rookie. We've seen the hesitation this year to play him big minutes. And even when Kel'el Ware has played well, I'll defend Kel'el because I think he's a lot of talent here. He could play really well for 10 games. But if he plays a couple bad games back-to-back, it seems like his leash is way shorter than other players like Jaime Jaquez Jr., like Nikola Jovic. And I don't think that's fair to Kel'el Ware. But the two apparently haven't even talked about it. After the game against OKC, the comments between Kel'el and Spo both seemed like they didn't even hash it out and what the issues were with each other. This is a ticking time bomb, it feels like. And if you want the latest on the Miami Heat, make sure you do subscribe to the channel today, as we'll have you covered every single day. Now, a lot of Heat fans will see this kind of situation developing between Kel'el and Spo, and a lot of people will actually say we should fire Erik Spoelstra because he's mismanaging this team in Kel'el Ware. I got news for you. This is not my opinion, and I'm talking to the Kel'el Ware stands right now because most of you guys think I have it out for Kel'el Ware. I don't have it out for him. I want him to succeed. I want him to be the next coming of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But do I want that? Absolutely, because that means the Heat would probably be winning multiple NBA Finals. There is no player on the Heat I root against because I want them to all win. I just watch, I analyze, and I form an opinion. But here is a fact for you, Kel'el Ware fans. The Miami Heat, without 1 millisecond of thinking about it, would choose to trade or borderline release Kel'el Ware before moving on from Erik Spoelstra. That is not an opinion. That is a fact. It is not hard to figure that out. If you believe otherwise, I'm sorry, you either live in fantasy Candyland or you need to get your head checked. Because Erik Spoelstra is going to be here long after Kel'el Ware, unless Erik Spoelstra steps down. The Heat, especially with Pat Riley in charge, would never move off of Erik Spoelstra. I think that's very clear. And if you want to talk about the future then of Kel'el Ware in Miami, I think he's traded in the offseason. Does it happen in the next 3 weeks before the deadline? No, it does not. unless Giannis becomes available. If Giannis requests a trade, Kel'el Ware, I'll see you in Milwaukee. Go have a good career over there. Because that's what the Heat would do. But when it comes to the offseason, it's going to be an interesting conversation on what Miami ultimately does with Kel'el, assuming this relationship between him and Spo does not improve. Final word on today's show. We talked about DaVon Mitchell off the top here. Michael Scotto, also in that same kind of article releasing information he's heard, said that DaVon Mitchell has drawn interest around the league. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, they're not going to trade him either. Like, think about it. This guy has got 1 year left on his deal, $12 million. Signed a 2-year, $25 million contract this past offseason. The Heat love DaVon. Now, you can make the argument on if he should be the starting point guard for Miami. I say no. I think he's better suited as a change of pace, point of attack guy off the bench, sixth man type of guard. But he is someone Miami values very highly. And what would you get for DaVon Mitchell? Are you getting a first-round pick for DaVon? No, you're not. So there's not really a reason to trade him anyway. The only players you trade away at the deadline this year are players that you either get a first-round pick in return for or you're trading to get a massive upgrade. Who out there would garner a Heat upgrade by a wide margin if you trade DaVon Mitchell? Probably not many. Like, if you want to trade him for Ja, all right, maybe you could have a conversation. But it doesn't sound like Miami would even do that anyway. So I'm here to tell you I don't think DaVon Mitchell gets traded. I don't think Kel'el Ware gets traded either before the deadline. I've been very open about that in this show. The only player on today's episode that we've talked about as potential trade candidates and an actual guy who could get dealt away is Andrew Wiggins. And we'll close the show there. Who gets traded? Who is the most likely player that we talked about to be traded before the February 5th trade deadline? Type AW for Andrew Wiggins, type KW for Kel'el Ware, and type DM for DaVon Mitchell. As always, we'll have you covered on all Miami Heat trade rumors outside of the YouTube, on our Twitter, @Knecht_Roloff. So go give me a follow.